Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about navigating changes in your personal values and its effect on your relationship, understanding why people are still choosing to get married, and the key factors to creating your ideal wedding. But before we get into that, Sammy, what's been fueling you up this week?
Oh, I had a milestone PB win this week.
Yeah, what was it?
Well, I had two. I reached a 100-day streak of closing the rings on my Apple Watch.
Amazing.
Yeah, 100 days.
Yeah.
Every day for 100 days.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one was that I picked up running again for the first time in like 5 years, probably. Almost 5 years. Back in July. And I've just been like easing myself back into it and like, you know, seeing the chiro and like bit by bit. And yeah, I did my longest run to date. So at 8Ks, and I did it faster than what I had done my 7K. So so my fuel up was that just seeing progress, I think.
I was probably seeing progress as well in an area that you thought you'd probably never be able to do again.
Yeah, I did. I thought I'd retired.
Yeah, you did.
And I'm really proud of, I'm proud of myself for not just being like, oh my gosh, I can run, and then going hell for it, like right at the beginning. But I have been trying to really consciously, like just bit by bit, giving myself rest days. And
yeah, but also probably you should feel really proud about breaking that limiting belief as well.
Yeah, I really do. Yeah, and I think it's like just this beautiful combination. So I'm feeling really good about that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
What about you? What fueled you up this last week?
Mine's a bit of a fitness one too. I managed to get back out onto my mountain bike and actually out into the national park to go riding again for the first time in, honestly, I think it's been 2 years. Even earlier in the year, I don't think that I managed to get out actual mountain biking. So yeah, it was a really nice feeling. I was feeling a little bit rusty while I was out there, but it was well overdue.
But you've rebuilt your mountain bike for this expedition.
Yeah, I have. I've done a number of upgrades to it. So that was was kind of my lockdown project, was rebuilding all my bikes and upgrading it. So yeah, so it was nice to kind of see that my upgrades were worthwhile. And
take it out in the wild.
Yeah, that's it. Take it out where it's meant to be. I've ridden around here a couple of times, but it's just not the same. Yeah.
Please forgive the little self-plug here. But if you don't already, please come over and join us on socials at Fuel Collective or fuel.collective on Instagram. We've been really consciously sharing some like infographics and sort of nuggets that have shared from our guests in visual form. So if you are a visual learner like me, you might get some value out of that. And it's a really nice way to see the little bite-sized bits of the episodes that we share, as well as some other really great content. So little self-plug here. Come on over and join Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group or follow the page on Insta or Facey.
But now here's this week's guest.
Today we've got Pete Hordern joining us. Pete is a young Melbourne marriage celebrant and MC who creates relaxed, chilled out and easygoing wedding ceremonies and funerals. Pete is the dad of 3, husband to 1, and has been celebrating for over 5 years. Welcome to the show, Pete.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It's nice to have you. So Pete, where did your celebrant journey start? Like what kind of fueled you up to become a celebrant?
Yeah. So my story begins. I grew up in the church. Family was very involved, and through those teenage years, going to youth group every Friday night was like my identity. That was my life. I loved it. And for that period of my life, going to that and having that support and those friendships, it was fantastic. So going there, I became a youth pastor in the end. Finished school, did my undergrad in theology. Then I moved to Melbourne for a job and was working in a church and got married during this time. Met my wife through church friends in that community. And we, together during that stage, just began to change as people. Went through some big transitions and made the decision that the church and the community, just maybe some of the things that it stood for, we didn't really want to get behind anymore. And so we actually finished up and left that community. But my whole life had been spent geared towards being a youth pastor, geared towards being involved and working in this community. And a big part of that was public speaking. So to step out of that community, I was like, shit, I don't know what to do anymore. And it was another, I guess he was a guy who used to work at college, good friend Jeremy Hodson. He was also a pastor and also was a civil celebrant as well. And he recommended to me, why don't you try this out? And I'd done some weddings before and I'd enjoyed them. I'd run a small business before and I'd enjoyed running a small business. And I was like, well, I get to do all my public speaking stuff. And that's pretty much what I've geared all my strengths towards. I would get to just sit and meet people and just chat about this story and just get to, ask them how they're doing and sort of hold their hand during a journey. I'm like, that's what I love to do as well. So it just really ticked off a whole lot of boxes. So I then did my study and became a civil celebrant.
Amazing.
What's it like having your life anchored in love?
It's pretty fun. Like, I'll be honest, it is pretty fun. And it's like, it sounded really Disney, anchored in love, but it's definitely, there are days where you go there and look, a typical week for me is I'll be writing stories during the week and I'm writing about how people met, their origin story. I'm writing about what's important to them. I'm writing about how they're similar and how they're different, clearly what they love about each other and what gives them the shits about each other, because you've got to keep it genuine.
Yep.
And, writing about their proposal and, everything I do is to ham it up a little, like to add a little bit of just bit of fun. Sometimes you've got to add, a little bit of shit into a story to make it really come alive. But that's, everyone appreciates that. So I'm writing these stories and then I'm meeting with couples in the evening. Come the weekend, I get to go to this beautiful venue, whether it's a vineyard or an old building around Melbourne. And then once we're there, all friends and family, everyone's dressed up, feeling great. It's a great vibe. Get to share their story in front of, 50 to 300 people. And that already puts me on a buzz and I'm loving it. Everyone's laughing, their couple are crying and smiling and they're having fun. So to put it simply, it's pretty awesome. Like, it's a pretty great job that you're just around this, you're around the positive side of stuff a lot of the time. Clearly, COVID sort of dampened the complete happiness of everything, but it really is, it's an awesome job. I do enjoy doing funerals, though, during the week, because that can balance life out a little bit, because life is not always on a constant, and I don't think it should be on a constant high and a constant, everything's amazing, everyone's always in love and just, wanting to be with each other forever. That's not always life. So doing funerals can be very grounding and just help me get into that. People can live a great life and some people can live very complicated lives. So it's nice to have both, personally.
Yeah, or a life cut too short. I want to go back to something that you mentioned about making the transition with your wife to sort of leave the church and start a new chapter of your life. Like, how did that go for your relationship in terms of like the thing that you built the foundation of it on, and then you were kind of like relocating how did you do that?
I'm not sure with great difficulty. It was just like, it was tough. It was a really shitty time in life. And I didn't make a big hoo-ha about finishing up. It was very torn within. Like, even to this day, there are times where I'm just like, I feel like I should still be part of that community. And look, maybe one day we will enter back into that community. But I know that it was a very disorientating time. And for both of us, probably the best way I can describe it was like both of us had our own, identities and just were kind of taking there's two analogies. One is like taking bricks apart, like sort of just of a house and a wall, and just going like, how am I going to rebuild this and put it together? Or it's like a trampoline. I think Rob Bell uses the analogy of like just pulling some springs off and going like, that one doesn't work for me, this spring, but this one does. And you're still able to bounce in your identity of all that. But it was tough. it was very disorientating. Like, I remember sitting there at times and going like, my vision feels blurred, even though I've got great vision. But my brain was just on overload trying to figure stuff out. In how we both did that together, we both went through that at the same time, but slightly differently. Mine was probably more geared towards theological questions, and Grace was more geared toward, I can't really speak for her, but more of the emotional aspects of it, of church and that. But one thing that was, I guess, is great is that we went through that transition together, and we went through asking those questions together as well. So it could have gone really pear-shaped. And, you know, it's I won't say it's common, but of course it happens where someone's life journey is taking them somewhere else, and you've got to navigate that together. Thankfully for us, we were going in a similar direction, just through a similar, what I would say, traumatic experience or existential crisis, whatever you want to say.
Yeah. And I think you got the blessing that you grew around the same thing at around the same time.
Yeah.
Whereas some people grow apart through those moments.
Yes. Yeah. Thankfully, we did grow together, and then we kept growing our family. So, yeah, pretty blessed in that aspect, but it could have gone very differently.
Yeah. Can I be a little bit cheeky? What would you say is the biggest lesson that you learned about either yourself or your relationship throughout that time?
Probably I feel like there's so many. I feel like one of the biggest lessons throughout that time, and is maybe a slightly scary thing, is that we change as individuals, and what we think is rock solid, even within ourselves, can shift. And that's not a bad thing, and that's actually can be a great personal growth thing. It could also be the opposite. We could actually go in a direction we don't want to go in. And I think all of these things start from smaller little increments that have probably happened longer back, questions, conversations, influences, things that we've asked, conversations we've had, decisions we've made, even smaller ones. And I think, for me, I was always like, I was going to be a Christian, proud of being part of a church community. And we were both going to be like, I was going to be working in a church. I was going to be a critical part of that community for my entire life. That was like everything. So to step away from that was huge. So it was tough in terms of learning that we can change, and kind of scary as well. And sort of knowing that something that I thought was so solid can shift. But then it also gives you that aspect of having grace for others, because people change. And you sort of thought, but I didn't think of them as that way, or in terms of maybe they've become a much better person. Maybe they're actually making way better decisions. I think it's very normal to go through some huge life-changing decisions, particularly in your sort of mid to late 20s, to have those go through some big life shifts and changes. And there's probably more to come as well. And I think that that's exciting and terrifying as well. So I'd say that was probably a big thing for me to actually learn that it's okay to change, not sort of hold on to something and say, I'm not allowed to feel or experience anything else. Like, I have to just beat myself into this box.
Yeah. Or evolve into something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that thought, because we've always said that we've kind of gone through like 3 or 4 kind of real distinct patches or different styles of relationships within our own relationship. That there is always movement, and you get to learn a lot about your partner during that time as well.
Hugely so. And I think that's learning more about your partner is the joy and sometimes the sorrow. And they've had to be both times with both Grace and I, when it comes to things, to go, one of us has to change here. Otherwise, this issue is going to cause a lot of angst within us. And it's like, we can grow. There are obviously things we need to grow together in. And then there are things where it's like, that's almost just like how you're wired. It's how you're built. And I didn't fully see or appreciate, or maybe didn't want to see that aspect of you. But if we're going to make this commitment work, we're going to have to learn to work with this. Yeah.
So, Pete, if I can ask you another pretty personal question around this transition, is you had wrapped a lot of your self-identity around the church, and then you've removed yourself from that environment. How did you go about recreating yourself and your self-identity outside of that?
A lot of conversations with good people, honest conversations. And I think part of it was you do realize who your friends are during that time. And you're able to have some good, honest conversations with them, knowing that even if they don't agree with where you're going, that they're still going to stick by you. And having conversations with people who are the person you'd like to be down the track, and just saying, who have been through similar circumstances, and just having them normalize your experience. So I think having someone to normalize what you're going through is extremely helpful. I think you've got to then pick, where am I going and who do I want to be? And I can't say that I have that really clarified, but I do know that we were in a lot of debt at that time, and it was extremely stressful. So part of building a business was, it was like, well, this isn't my life and is not really about me anymore. Being a youth pastor was a love job, and it was great. I was able to give for very little income. I was giving my sort of heart towards others to make sure that I could help support them through their own life, their own faith journey. But now that I have my own family, I really struggle to be able to do that well, and to do family life well, and to have enough emotional capacity. I've got 3 beautiful girls, got 1 beautiful wife, and they need me. And I personally I wasn't able to give everything and be everything to everyone. Clearly, family for me is going to take that priority. And then the next thing, it's like, well, now I'm also one of the providers here. So building a business was part of, why I did what I did in celebrancy.
Yeah. I know we're talking about your experience in terms of leaving the church and that being a very big part of your life, but I think this applies to lots and lots of different things when we've anchored so much of ourself and our identity and our relationship around something. And it could be like a sporting club. It could be a geographical location. Yeah. It could be a career or a business or an identity as a parent or as a carer, or whatever that big thing is that shapes a big part of who we become. I think we do go through those transitions as we figure out who we are without that thing. Or who we want to become. But I really liked the way that you said there that you're like, well, who do I want to become? I don't think we ask ourselves that enough.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we ask people like, what do you do for a living? And they'll say this, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. And so I just sort of fell into it. And I'm like, I feel like a lot of people fall into what they do, and that's not a bad thing, because you could fall into a great thing. But you can also work towards something that you want to do. And I've just been thinking of a story. I was a celebrant for an ex-footy player who had only just started his career in Essendon when the whole doping thing went down, and literally he's just started. His whole life is geared towards this moment. He's made the team, he's made the cut, and then boom, he's been fired, and he's not going to be able to play for the rest of his life. That would have been a shattering moment. So for him, he's now a lawyer, and he asked himself, what am I passionate about? And I think he actually has become a criminal lawyer from his experience of, So you've got to, look at, where you're at, and then make a decision of, well, where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? Definitely.
Hey, so if we can change gears a little bit and talk a little bit.
Yes, we can.
Please get me out. Yeah, to change gears to a little bit more about what you do in your professional life and how you support couples at what is a very big moment in their life. But I'd love to know from your lens, why are couples choosing to get married these days?
I think that question is extremely important, because I think a reason for a lot of couples has changed. From a historical perspective, women are no longer property of men. Women Yay. Women are not dependent on men for finances. So the reason of why we're getting married now, it's not for a cultural thing. It's not for a security thing. It is for this thing of, people say, well, I love this person. My hope is when people say, I love this person, it is beyond an emotional love. And I think for couples who have been together for more than 4 or 5 years, I think it has to have surpassed simply that. And it's not that it gets rid of that. I think it's always nice to have, hope we have that sort of, at least a little bit of that emotional love for our person, even when we're in our 80s. But it is something that develops, past a feeling to an intimacy, and it develops something a lot stronger. So why I think people are getting married these days, when I ask them, why are you making this happen? They said, well, we've been together for X amount of years and we want to celebrate what we have, and we love what we have. We enjoy who we are as a couple, and we want to, I guess, having a celebration of that is called marriage. So I think a lot of people are getting married because they want to have a party with all their friends and family, and they want to celebrate who they are. They feel like they're committing, they're ready to commit. And for a lot of people, it is also the next chapter of their story, which can come with some, that's a great reason, and can also be might not necessarily be the main, or should be the main reason. But I think why do a lot of couples get married? Because they've found someone they are comfortable with, that they feel that they can be themselves with, that they haven't had this type of connection with anyone else, and they want to keep it going.
I think you touched on something really important there, just around marriage and kind of the reason for it in the past. Looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where down at the bottom of that hierarchy, you've got the survival needs and the
shelter,
need to, shelter, and the need to pool resources to be able to survive. And really that's what marriage was serving, that purpose, for so many years, really. And so that psychological and the safety needs and things like that. And once you start getting further up, you get to the love and belonging, and then more who you are in yourself. And so I think as we've become a lot more safe in our day-to-day lives, and we can literally just duck down to the shops and get everything. We don't need to go foraging, grow it, or go foraging for berries or whatever else. The kind of need for marriage has changed over the years, and I think people are looking for those higher tiered needs to be met in a marriage now too.
Yeah. I think it's good. I think it's good that the reasons for marriage has changed. And I think that it's an important question. And I think it has to be the first question that people ask is, why are we doing this? To want to put on an incredible party for everyone isn't enough to get married. And it really needs to beg the question of, is this really the right person? And I think when you meet people, you can get a real good feeling if oh, you guys are awesome together. And then there are some you're feels like there might be some stuff that needs to be possibly addressed here.
I bet you get to have some awkward conversations.
Probably not really. I don't have, some couples will really open up, but I'm not their, they don't open up, so I'm not their counsellor. I am there to help them plan this ceremony. And I think a lot of couples, they really want to make sure that they express to me how much they love each other. But clearly I'd like to dig deeper into is there anything that annoys you? Because I'm it's pretty normal to be annoyed by it. And some people are where do I begin? And there's, some struggle, and it's that's cool. Everyone's different. I'm sure Grace would have plenty to say about me.
I want to ask, have you ever turned a couple away because you're you two should just not be getting married?
No, I haven't. But I've definitely been asked the question a lot, and I've definitely thought about that question a lot. From a legal standpoint, I'm there to, if two individuals want to get married, that's completely their decision. And it's okay, well, if they want to make this decision, I, definitely ask the question of why are you doing this? Recommend, should you be seeing, I recommend to everyone it's good to go see a counsellor or get some form of marriage counselling or prep beforehand, even read a book and just make sure you delve into some deeper questions before. However, I haven't turned in any way, even though there are some couples that I would question perhaps, there's something feels off. But I also understand that I don't know what that is, and it's not necessarily my job to figure out what that is either. If there was, for me, the line is if there was a hint of abuse going on, and it's I ask myself, well, how would I know that? I'm not sure, but if it's something you pick up there seems to be an abuse, or if there's some form of one of these people really don't seem like they want to get married. Sometimes that can be hard because some of them, the guys will be she wants to get married and, doing this for her. And it's well, is there commitment because they want to be with her and they just don't want a big wedding day? Or is it's more about, is someone being forced into marriage? Which is why there's so many forms, because it's almost like you're clarifying, okay, signing is like,
are you sure?
Want to get, yeah,
are you sure? Are you still sure?
And like, I think for any couple, you've got to be honest with yourself. If you are getting those jitters, if you're getting anxious before signing or before just like thinking about actually this commitment, maybe don't do it, or hold off and delve a bit deeper and answer those questions, because man, how horrible to go through a whole day, spend thousands of dollars,
tens of thousands sometimes,
tens of thousands.
Yeah.
For some it's hundreds, but they're my couples. Come on. But like it's a huge day. It's a huge expense, and that's to then only break up later down the track when you were sort of going, I knew all along. Like, and I get that sometimes we've got to just do the journey of life, and I get that. But I'd say if someone knows that there's something that doesn't feel right,
be brave and listen to your intuition.
Yeah.
You've got to be brave. And like I was talking, and Sammy, I told you this before, was talking to one of the guys from the gym, and he was saying 2 years had been in a relationship, and he was just, I'm like, how's it going? And he was just like, oh yeah, like it's all right. She's sort of talking about, wanting kids and stuff. He's like, I'm just not really sure. And I just said, look, what I hear all the time from couples, probably the main story is that the person they're with, it just feels easy. Particularly at the start, it feels effortless. And I'm saying, like, if you're 2 years in and you're not feeling it, and you both are hitting around that 30 mark, and she's wanting kids and you're not, I don't know, man. Maybe you got to see where you're at. And a couple of weeks later, he finished it up. And I was sort of like, oops, shouldn't have said it.
No, I think you should have. Say more.
And I was like, hope you're okay. And he's like, yeah, no, it's all good. He's like, it was a good chat. So, but I should also say as well that not every couple has that story. Not every couple has this. It just felt easy from the start. Some people do feel like at times it can be a little bit of work, but there is something within them that they want to continue and they want to pursue, because there's something about this relationship that they enjoy, even though it might not have had this. We found each other on Tinder, and we
went on a couple of dates, and here we are.
Went on a couple of dates, and we like the same books and all that.
Well, I think for us it felt easy, but we also did have like probably more fights or more big conversations in that first 12 months than we did for the rest of our ever since.
The big ones,
Yeah. So I think it does feel easy, and you know that there's something more there to be able to work through, but it doesn't mean that everything's going to be easy. Like there will be challenging conversations and stuff, especially, as you're trying to work out how to merge your two lives together.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And look, that first year is, as a lot of people say, it's a tough year. And for, Grace and I, I was a very good boy, very good Christian boy. We didn't live together before. In fact, we did nothing before. If you're catching my drift.
We hear you.
Yes. I could have had my movie of 30-year-old virgin almost. So moving in together, and we were an instant family because Grace already had a beautiful little girl, so we got together and we have an instant family. It was fantastic. Just add marriage and stir, and you've got a wonderful life. And it's just working through all those little things, and sometimes even the silly things of where you put things in what cupboards, and why it's like you're not a crazy person because you put it in this cupboard. That's just the family you come from. We get to figure out where we want to do it together.
In our family, in this family.
In our family, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Pete, this has been really cool. Two more big questions that I want to ask is around when couples are coming to you and they're embarking on this journey of planning a wedding together. It's probably the first time they've maybe been on a few tens of thousands of dollar project together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have any insights or recommendations for couples who are navigating like this big mammoth project together to have it cohesive and for them to end up with what they want, or at least a version of what they want?
For sure. When it comes to weddings, like, let's just be honest, it's going to be more expensive than you want it to be, and there are going to be more people than you would like offering their opinion on what it should look like. You should hope at least if someone's going to offer their opinion of what it looks like, they're also going to contribute financially to getting it there. I guess, okay, for me, and talking with Grace about this, for me, it really starts with pick your priority of what is most important to you on your day. And probably I'd say both of them going to have a separate something that is really core to them. For one, it might be the location. For one, it might be, I've wanted it in a church wedding. It's always been my dream. I wanted to be at, St. Michael's, here in the city or whatever. And then for some, it's like, I want it to be at a vineyard, or I'd love it to be just on the beach. And then for someone else, it might be, I want to have just a great band. For some, music is just crucial. Like that is what will make. So they're going to make sure they have a live musician during the ceremony. They're going to have, 4 or 5 piece band at the reception. And for them, that will make the ceremony or the whole wedding. Sometimes it's food. Sometimes it's drink. Sometimes it's getting family involved. Sometimes it's being as private as possible, and it's doing it in the bush somewhere by a stream, wearing your old ravers, rave clothes that you would do together, and you've got a few family members there, and you've really got to pick what's important to you, because you don't need the Instagram wedding to make it a great wedding. You've got to look for, okay, well, what's my priority and what's our priority? And talking with Grace, for her, this really comes down to risk as well. The risk of, what are you willing to risk? Are you willing to risk that to get exactly what you want at the risk of hurting, offending, or letting others down? Or are you going to take the risk of pleasing others and then letting yourself down and wishing that you'd done things differently? So there is going to be an element of risk either way in either decision. And I think you've got to figure out, well, who am I as a person? Me personally, I'm more of a people pleaser. Grace is more of a, no, this is how I want to do it, and it's going to be great.
That sounds like a good balance for you too.
It is a good balance. It really is a good balance. So it's, to start, for me, it's look at your priority and look at what's important. A lot of my couples who choose me tell me that they want a ceremony where it doesn't feel awkward, and where everyone feels comfortable and it just feels easy, and they just don't want these awkward, cringy moments. And
we've been to a few of those.
Oh, yeah, we've all been to a few of those. And it's like, that's why I love doing my job, because I'm like, I like to create a ceremony that is the exact opposite, where everyone feels relaxed, where everyone's had a few laughs, where everyone's had a few moments. Like, it's just keep the balance, and it will just feel natural and it will feel normal. So, my thing is, look at your priority. For couples who pick me, that's a big priority of theirs. So coming alongside them and creating that day, where for some, the ceremony might be, it's really not that important. It's sort of like just something we have to do. We just want to get someone in, just tick the boxes, and we're going to the party. And there's not a right or wrong in that. It's just a preference.
When you look back, Nath, what was important to you on our day? Do you remember?
So I think having a religious celebrant was definitely important to me, and that was something which we discussed as well, and really worked through to work through together. But then I think as well, like, just having the day and having the, like, I think we had an overall, like, feeling for our wedding that we wanted to produce, and we realized that we couldn't do that with 200 people. And so we wanted it to be, like, kind of intimate. And so what we ended up doing was we had about 50 people at our wedding ceremony, but then we kind of went for an open slather engagement party beforehand, because we got engaged relatively close. It was like, 5 months or something apart from when we got engaged to when we got married. So our engagement party was actually only like probably 4 months, 3 or 4 months like before our wedding. So what we kind of did to counteract the two things was we went open slather for the engagement party. Everybody can invite everybody.
Yeah, our grandparents were allowed to invite everyone. Our parents were allowed to invite everyone.
Yeah, just whoever rocks up. And we just kind of put some drinks on, and that was kind of the opportunity for everybody to come celebrate with us. And then our wedding ceremony was a lot more intimate.
Yeah, we fiercely protected that guest list, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Cool. Yeah, great. And I think that's it. You've got to really pick what's important to you, and you can change things up. Have a big engagement party and then a small one. Or it's like finances, we don't have a huge amount. Cool. Have an engagement party and turn it into a wedding.
Because my one thing was to drink champagne all day. I wanted to drink Pol Roger all day, and I could not do that for 200 guests. I could do that for 50 guests.
You and Grace would get on well, because I'm pretty sure that was Grace's one thing as well. Yeah. And I think just you got to pick your priority, and I think from there, for me, that helps and then establish your budget. Because if you're going to do a big project, you've got to accept, and you talk to all the wedding planners, and they're like, "What's the main thing?" It all comes down to budget. So my thing is, well, before you start budget, you go, what's important to us? Because that's then going to shift the dollars. Because you'll find when you're planning a wedding, you'll find those the high X amount, and then there's going to be the low X amount as well. So you've just got to shift those funds and go, well, this part doesn't mean, for some people, music's not a big thing, and they'll just put a Spotify list on, or they'll get a DJ. It's like, no worries. You can shift things around. So you just got to really pick what's important to you. And then, of course, do your shopping around, but just be honest and go, we're okay to suffer a little bit in this aspect as long as we have this other area of our wedding just kicking goals.
Yeah. One of my best friends in the whole world made our wedding cake, I think the morning of our wedding, from packet mix cake, and she was hung up. I'm not sure if she was still drunk or hungover. Either somewhere in crossing the line between the two.
Yep.
Yeah, because the cake was just not important to us. But it was
and I think it was the week leading up to the wedding that she asked.
She called
and was like, is there anything I could do? And you're like, oh yeah, can you make us a cake?
That's so
because
good.
it just wasn't important to us. My nana really wanted the cake cutting photo, so we were like, all right, we'll get a cake. Someone will bring a cake.
And I think she was planning on making some sort of custom cake, but then it was like
packet mix cake.
Packet mix cake.
And she told me years later, she's like, I have to tell you.
That's so good. That's so great.
But everyone enjoyed the cake. It was fun. It was great.
Yeah.
I didn't get any of our wedding cake, and I'm still bitter to this day.
Oh yeah.
You have to order a whole one.
Well, no, because I think Grace made it. Like, Grace made the cake, and she's made one similar, but it's like it's not the same because it's not your wedding cake, and apparently it was awesome. And as we're leaving, I asked them, can you please get me a piece? And they're like, I'll get you a piece. Never saw them again. The person's dead to me.
Well, you ended up married, so the thing that was meant to go right went right.
Yeah.
You are correct. You're right. That wasn't my goal to eat cake at the wedding. Clearly it wasn't.
But it was hard, your priorities.
Yeah, clearly maybe it was a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, let's round this out. If there was a top tip or a recommendation, something for couples to watch, read, listen, do, implement in their own relationship to keep it fueled up, what would it be? It can be something that you do in your own relationship. It can be something you prescribe to couples before they get married with you.
Well, I'm going to recommend something that I can't say I've necessarily done as planned out, but I know what you guys do. You have your big annual game day plan thing. We do that in a very loose type of way. Like, it happens over like a few conversations of just planning the things that we want to do that year. And we'll talk about, we took your New Year's resolutions together, and you talk about where we want to go on holidays and what are the girls doing for sports and did you want to do anything different this year? But we don't have it as a formal, like you guys have a formal day where you nail
AGP.
it. The AGP, I love it. Like, it's fantastic. And we were talking, I would talking to Grace about that, to have a bit more structure to it. But I think it's important to have that time really planning together what it is that you want your day, your year to look like. But then also talk in the future, talk long term. And then I think that you always need to set a time aside, whether it's a formal time but just to have some of those honest life chats with where you're at, because stuff can just, in the motion of life, and I feel particularly with kids, like, stuff gets busy and feels like you're in a bit of a whirlwind at times, and you can get caught up in something in your own inner world that you need to express, or maybe something that's frustrating you, and you need to set a time, whether that's on a date night or it's just sitting down and just saying, hey, can we just chat later tonight about something? But organising a time, talk about the things that are in your heart and be honest. And I think that if you can really be honest with your partner, it just makes all of life so much easier. And if you can't be honest, you've got to ask yourself why. And maybe you've got to take a little bit of a risk to be honest. And then I think hopefully you'll be surprised at how open and accommodating your partner is.
Yeah, I really love both of those.
Yeah, I also love that you plugged one of our own tools and one of our own assets on our show. So yes, thank you. Everyone can get the agenda for that at fuelcollective.com.au/AGP. If you want to go and swipe our agenda, you're welcome to it. Thanks, Pete.
No worries.
Hey, so this has been great. Thank you for letting us take a peek behind the curtains of your transition in your life and recreating it and your relationship and what you do with couples. To say thank you, we've given a year's worth of seeds to help a family in Malawi so that they can continue to grow crops and sustain their children and their families day after day. So this project's looked after by Every Home Global Concern and was made possible via our partnership with Buy One, Give One. So thank you so much for making that possible.
Thank you. Awesome.
No worries. So, Pete, if people want to connect with you or learn a little bit more about yourself or your celebrancy business, how should they do that?
Feel free. They can jump on my website at petethecelebrant.com.au. Instagram, it's Pete the Celebrant. I've also got the Wedding Guide podcast. They can jump onto that if they are thinking about planning a wedding or if they're in the midst of planning a wedding or they just love weddings so much and they want to keep listening to vendors and how they do their stuff. Yeah, so go on my website, Instagram, Facebook, podcast.
Or
if they just need a good old chat, you'll find my number sprayed all across the internet.
Yeah, awesome. And you work, live and play mostly in Melbourne?
Predominantly, yes. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us, Pete. This has been great.
Great. Thanks for having me, guys. Loved it.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.